Hi, I'm Melissa. I'm an intuitive coach and mentor,
And I'm Louisa. I'm an awakening coach and energy healer.
and we're your spiritual besties.
We're just everyday women having an extraordinary human experience.
You see, we've both been led down the path of amazing discoveries through the power of spirituality.
So, we're here to share our experiences as we dive deep into all things sacred.
Our hope is that we can contribute to the collective conversation to help you feel less alone and more confident as you walk the path to becoming more connected with the universe.
We'd love for you to join us each week as we share our discoveries and navigate this journey together.
I went to this shop with my friend and I got a pendulum and had, of course, no idea what this is. What does it do? And she just kind of briefly explained it to me and was like, here's what you do. And so I saw one and I was like, this one's mine. Obviously, this one's mine. I just need to pick this one up. And so I pick it up and just immediately it's so reactive to me and could just feel it, right? As soon as it started moving, I could almost feel the energy of it moving, which I was like, okay, obviously this is mine. I wasn't like, oh, I don't know. It was one of those situations where I'm like, I'm walking out of the store with this. Like, this is happening. And so I was using it last night. Once I'm like, okay, what's my yes? What's my no? And then I start asking yes or no questions. And it was crazy. Like it was, and this is where I'm like, I don't know if I'm supposed to be using it this way. I was like, is this going to happen in this situation? And it was like, yes. And I'm like, okay. And I started digging deeper and getting more detailed on it and always, of course, asking yes or no questions. And then at one point, I'm like, I got to test it. I'm like, do I have purple hair? It was like, no. I'm like, okay, okay, all right. It seems like
Oh, I love that.
seems like you're working, right? And,
I love that. I so love that. But that's so real. Toward the beginning, when I started to use my pendulum, I was like, is my name Louisa? Like, I
yeah,
need to check you. I need to fact check you. Make sure that you're giving me the right answers. Yeah.
seriously, because I was like, there's a point where it's just like, is it just randomly swinging one way or another? And so I'm like, okay, all right. Oh, there was another point where I was asking a question and it seemed to be like answering the question. Again, I'm like, is this for real? Because I feel like I'm getting information about my future that I don't know. And so I had a thought that it was definitely like, oh, well, that's obviously a no, like another, sort of test. And I didn't even really intentionally do it. I just like, had the thought and it immediately switched directions and then started signaling no. And I'm like, okay.
Well, it's funny. I told you I learned how to use my pendulum in my spiritual training program. And one of the things that she says, she's like, it's going to come to a point, depending on how intuitive you already are, where you're going to know the answer before your pendulum tells you the answer. Because you're already so intuitive. It was like that moment. That's what it made me think of. One of the things that I did learn was that you need a point of reference. So
Okay.
for me, because I work with the Akashic Records a lot when I'm doing soul readings, I always have to keep coming back to the Akashic Records. That's my point of reference. I've gotten so used to it because what I have found is that the answer is accurate based on where I'm asking it from. If I'm asking it questions like within myself, usually things that I'm doubting, right? Like I'm like, oh, well, what's going to happen? Then I get the answer of what I already believe is going to happen,
Okay.
which seems
Yeah.
to maybe have been different for you. But for me, that's what I realized. And so I keep going back to what I learned in my spiritual training program, which is just always remember your point of reference. If you don't have a point of reference, you don't know where the answer could be coming from. And it could be coming from your subconscious. It could
Okay.
move it like based on like
Okay.
your own subconscious like thoughts and stuff. And I thought that was
Right.
so interesting because I never would have guessed that.
Right. So I totally get that and I agree. And I think that makes sense. And I think that could have been happening for me last night when I was asking the questions.
Mm.
But here's my sort of digging deeper on that. If your reality comes from your beliefs, then if you're asking a question and it's answering based on what you believe will happen, what you believe will happen is what happens. Doesn't
Right?
that make sense? Like, so
Yeah.
then it would seem that then that would still be accurate, right? I don't know. Am I
Exactly. No, exactly. And I think that that's exactly it. It is giving you an accurate response based on what you believe, because that's your point of reference. If you haven't told it, focus on another point of reference, that is
Mhm,
your point of reference. And that is what's going to happen because that is what your belief system is. And like you
mhm,
said before, we are living, you said our truth based on what we believe. And I
mhm,
think the pendulum will tell you exactly that because that's a trajectory of your life. I think of it as like tarot too, which I think a lot of people don't understand about tarot is that tarot, what it tells you is going to happen is based on the trajectory that you're currently on. But
right.
the reason that some people are like, oh, that's not real, it's not true, is because if
Mhm,
you change your mindset, if you
mhm,
change your perspective, what you believe in,
mhm,
then that is something else happens that's different from what those tarot cards said. Because when you got that tarot reading,
mhm.
the answers and the perspective and the responses that you got were based on what you
Where
believed
you,
at that time.
it totally makes sense because I mean, and that is life, right? That is why we talk about, the way to create change in your life, the way to change what's going to happen in your life, because what's going to happen in your life, it's fluid. It's not set in stone. It's not like you're born and then like there's just this like life trajectory out in front of you, no matter what you do or think or whatever actions you take. It's not like, oh, well, this is just your life path. It's always going to happen no matter what. It depends on what actions are you taking? What are your belief systems? What do you think is going to happen? What do you want to happen? And I think that that's where when you get into the manifestation and everything. I just heard someone say this the other day and I can't remember who it was. I always think it's interesting when someone says like they just started working on manifesting or they just started getting
Mm.
into manifesting. And it's like, no, you've been manifesting your entire life. That is actually how it works. Whatever you're thinking about or thinking will happen, it's generally the way it turns out. And so even if you've had negative outcomes with things in your life, it's because you were expecting negative outcomes to happen in your life. Deep down, that's what you thought was going to happen. And
Yeah.
so it's just interesting because I think when people start talking about manifesting in the way that we hear people talk about it, it's more like I'm going to start, actively trying to
Yeah.
change the trajectory in my life versus I'm just going to keep manifesting whatever just randomly, happens in my head behind the scenes.
Yeah. Manifesting gets a bad rap, I think, just because of it being
Mhm.
misunderstood, because we are manifesting literally from the moment we have conscious awareness. So, at whatever point in our childhood we become consciously aware of our decisions and of who and what we are and what we're doing, then from that point we're manifesting. But to the point that you made earlier, one of the things that I have found and learned about reading souls is that a lot of people who come to get soul readings, what they're really looking for is for somebody to tell them what they're supposed to be doing, how they're supposed to live their lives, what job they're supposed to have, how they're supposed to do that job, how they're going to find that job, where to look, when they should apply, and where their life partner is and all these things. And it's like, does your soul reading have a very good understanding of who you are at soul level? Is there a very clear path of what, career wise is going to make you more abundant? Is there a very clear understanding of how you should live your life, etc.? Yes, but we are co-creators of our existence. And I think a lot of people miss that. I think a lot of people miss that in that they really just believe if there is destiny, then I just need to know what it is so that then I can just do it. So I can just live life out that way.
Yeah.
And it's like, no, where's the co-creator part and the free will part? You're leaving that out. And the free will is the number one universal law. We have free will. And the other part that I think people leave out, I don't know if it's because of lack of awareness or if it's just something that's not common that we don't all think about because we're all not into spirituality. If there was just a destiny and we're here to live it out anyway, no matter what happens, la la la, no matter what decisions we make, then why would there be negative souls? Who would choose to make so many bad decisions at soul level, lifetime over lifetime over lifetime, that we literally consider them negative souls, which is basically you've made so many bad choices for yourself in every single lifetime that you literally just don't receive any life force energy. And that's why you have to suck it out from other people. The term energy vampires is because they
Oh.
can't sustain their own life force. And that's based on our own decisions. So, is there a destiny? Are we here to fulfill something? Is there a path that if we make and follow along and learn the lessons that our soul is here to learn and experience, that are going to make our human experience so much more abundant and beautiful and joyful and with the lessons, all the beautiful things with the lessons, because the lessons inevitable. But I feel like we miss that a lot. People forget that it's yes, is there something that you're here to experience? Are there lessons for the evolution of your soul and your existence? But I think people are like, no, I'm just gonna manifest this and I'm just gonna sit here and make it happen. But I did want to ask you something because we got our crystals. How do you think crystals fit into manifesting? How would you put those two together?
So I think manifestation really is, if we, if we really like break it down, I think at this core level, it is essentially understanding internally, intuitively, what it is that you are here to do in life, then following along with that intuition and that inner knowing, taking the right actions to do the thing that you're really here and you're meant to do. A lot of people see it as like, oh, I want to manifest money. But I think that the money and the abundance is a byproduct of it, because the universe is abundance. That's what it is. It's love in this abundance of just everything. And so when you really lean in and you follow that inner knowing and that inner guidance, and you take those actions toward making that your life path, which is, it's the same thing. It's like your soul, you're aligning, sort of that alignment and happening and everything like that, then the automatic byproduct is abundance. And that includes financial abundance, whatever you want this abundance to be. It's there for you because you've aligned and you've moved in this direction. So I think with crystals, my opinion is they help you to get that clarity as far as whether it's chakras, whether it's just mindset, whatever it is that you're working with, whatever that modality is, the crystals help with tuning in or getting rid of the blocks so that you can really get deeper in there and find the truth.
This just came through as you were talking for me, like an amplification of the energy of the crystal being injected into whatever, whether it's your mental, whether it's your chakras, whatever it is.
It actually ties back then to something that you said earlier about everybody wanting to know, what is this crystal going to do for me? Or what is this crystal going to do for me? And it's like, be around them, feel it out. What crystal speaks to you? Because ultimately, yeah, we can say that, oh, amethyst helps with intuition, it helps with like psychic abilities and all of that, but maybe not for everyone. If that's just not your crystal, if it just doesn't jive with you, it's not gonna work in that way for you. I really think it is more about paying attention. How does this feel for me? A lot of different things can help you in that way. It doesn't necessarily need to be, oh, you have to get this stone like for this thing or whatever. It's just, well, what feels best? because when you start feeling it and getting in that place, it's going to help you. It's going to help you dig deeper and dig in. On that same note, it was a crystal that I picked up yesterday when I was in the shop because I'm reading the things like, what does this do? How does this help you? And I was like, oh, that's pretty cool. I like that thing. And there was one that was really pretty and it just caught my eye. And so I pick it up and I just have it in my hand and I'm walking around a little and I started physically getting nauseous and feeling. My first thought was like, what's going on? Like, this is weird. I just kind of all of a sudden washed over me. And then I realized that I had picked up this crystal and had it in my hand. And I'm like, well, let me just see if I set it back down and walk
Happened. Oh
away, if
my
it goes
goodness.
away. And it totally did. I set it back down, walked away within like 30 seconds. I'm like, oh my gosh. Okay. Well, not getting that one.
That's not mine. It speaks so much to what I had said. I have this very strong belief that it's about your intuition. It's about that inner knowing and following it. Because you took a moment to assess where is this coming from? And had you not been in tune with yourself in general, not just that day, because I feel like it goes a lot deeper than that to be that aware that that's what was causing you that feeling in that moment. Had you not been aware, you could have, oh my gosh, you could have gone on a pregnancy test, a blood work, a blood panel, you know what I'm saying? I mean, I have crystals everywhere. I put them on my windowsill so that they can cleanse because when I do the chakra cleansing, which I've been doing a lot of this week, I literally place, I have this physical chart of the chakras. And when I'm doing each individual chakra cleanse, I place a crystal on each chakra and then tune into that person's energy. And so I have all these beautiful crystals. And so I place them on the windowsill so that they can just cleanse automatically because I'm not going to remember to wash them and all the other options that we could do to cleanse them. So I keep them there because I think it's also a beautiful way for them to still collect some of the earth energy that's where their healing comes from. But I have such a strong belief that it's what crystal you're called to. It's not that I don't believe that they each have specific healing abilities that can help amplify, but I just believe that it's so much more about you and how they align with each individual person's energy specifically that I don't really, people like I shared is like people will ask me, like, what crystal do you recommend for that? And I'm like, whichever one you feel. It's like, I know that's not the response they want, but that's literally how I manage my own crystals. And when I do meditation, it's the same. I don't grab them based on most potent healing ability. I grab them based on what I feel is going to be most healing for me during that meditation session.
That totally makes sense. It's kind of a theme that we keep coming back to is that the internal knowing and how you feel. And I think that that is such a abstract concept for so many people because you don't just learn how to do that growing up. Like, unless someone is like, hey, here's the lay of the land here. Here's how you really dig deep and you get into this place where you can actually hear yourself and feel yourself, then you don't learn it. And most people don't really believe in that. It's more your brain and this conscious and these critical thinking skills that we hear about all the time. And not that you don't still need critical thinking skills in your life, but listening to yourself and understanding how you feel about a situation is really, really important too in making a decision and moving forward and taking action. It seems like such an abstract concept for so many people because they just don't get it. Like they've never been taught. They've never been told like this is how you do it and here's why it's important. The biggest lesson that we're here to help people learn is here's how you do it. Here's what you do to really get underneath all those layers of everything you've been told is just the way life works. And here's what you really should be doing so that you can understand what you're supposed to be doing and how you're supposed to be living your life because it's not. the same as everybody else. Not everybody's the same. Not everybody needs to make the same decisions or be on the same life path. I think that at the end of the day, like that's what we're doing. That's what we're supposed to be doing, is teaching people how to lean into themselves. Like we can't give you the roadmap to your life, but we can help you see it.
Yes. Yes. We can show you the way. We can hold your hand through getting there. We can hold your hand through the way and taking the actions and keeping you, helping to keep you accountable for taking the actions that are going to get you to the place where you become aware of your own inner knowing and have learned how to follow that compass. But in the meanwhile, until you get there, we're here to hold your hand through that process and to give you the tools and give you all those beautiful things. That's a wrap for this episode.
We hope you found some inspiration, a helpful tip, or maybe just a good laugh.
Remember, amazing human, you are not alone on this path to connect with your inner wisdom and the universe.
To stay connected and keep the conversation going, subscribe to our YouTube channel and our podcast so you never miss an episode.
And if this episode resonated with you, share it with your friends, family, or anyone who might find value in it. Until next time.